These are the questions that boggle my mind for my entire life. I don't know, and I will never know. So that's an answer, a fundamental problem in my life with no answer. Don't know if he was murdered, don't know if he committed suicide. All I know is he was found Halloween night a mile from my house with a bullet through his head from his own gun. So nobody knows. All I knew is I was fatherless at 6 with a mother who did not really understand how to raise a single boy.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior. And on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to the Sovereign Man podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nikki Ballou, and we got a great guest for you today, Brett Lavender. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Thank you, Nikki. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. So I met you through a good friend and client of mine, Michael Osterlink, who also does a lot of work in the men's space. And he said that you were great. And you do something called the Persuasive Lion. I'm like, that sounds interesting. So before we get into what that is, why don't you tell us your backstory, brother?
Oh, man. So I teach the art of verbal and nonverbal communication skills. And a lot of that is based on something that was developed in me because of my backstory. So the long and the short of it is, and this is all, by the way, outlined in a book I just released, called The Lion's Code. But the preface of the book is my backstory, which outlines the fact that I lost my entire family before I was 20.
What?
My father was found in his car a mile from my house on Halloween night with a bullet in his head.
Oh, Jesus, dude.
Prior to that, my only uncle, my mother's brother, died when I was 2 weeks old. I don't know the causes of that. By the time I was born, all 4 of my grandparents had passed. So I never knew a grandparent. And then when I was 19, my mother ended up dying in my arms of cancer after being diagnosed.
Dude.
Yeah, so it's been a road. And what ended up happening when I was 6, which I didn't realize until I started working in this space, was that I had a hypervigilant pattern recognition radar installed in my nervous system.
Yeah.
And so growing up, and I also ended up in an industry that allowed me to be in front of thousands of people over the course of decades. And because of that hypervigilance, I created a data bank of information of all different types of people, every walk of life. Doesn't matter where you come from, what your educational, financial, spiritual background is. There's all data. Everyone's always giving off information through eye contact and body language and facial expressions and tone of voice, and everything that they do communicates a message. And so because of my traumatic background, I ended up having to really be hyper aware of what was going on around me. I had no protection. I was literally walking a tightrope with no net.
Dude, that's crazy, man. That is absolutely crazy. So what happened to your dad? He was murdered?
Again, these are the questions that boggle my mind for my entire life. I don't know. And I will never know. So that's an answer, a fundamental problem in my life with no answer. Don't know if he was murdered. Don't know if he committed suicide. All I know is he was found Halloween night a mile from my house with a bullet through his head from his own gun. But there were so many misconstrued facts about no fingerprints on the gun, no powder burns on his hand. The gun is found on the left-hand side of the car, but the bullet was in through his right temple. So it was just never specified. And he was involved in some shady business in the automotive industry at that time in history. And so nobody knows. All I knew is I was fatherless at 6 with a mother who did not really understand how to raise a single boy.
So how did this take you to doing work that helps men?
Well, to clarify, it helps humans. As I said, this programming that I offer is basically verbal and nonverbal communication skills. And how it brought me there was, as I said, I ended up in the event entertainment business. But what it really turned out to be was not about performance. I was learning how to deliver presence through my nervous system.
Mm.
And so over the course of time and becoming an event host and then training event hosts, I realized that this technology, this methodology really works for everyone with civilians. So like when you refer to empowering men, I mean, literally I am teaching a program. Part of my Persuasive Lion program is called the Signal School. And inside the Signal School, there are three tiers. Tier one is called the lost languages, which is basically what we're talking about right now. People, because of cell phones, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, dating sites, technology has taken away these basic fundamental communication skills. So when I talk about eye contact, body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, melody, pitch, people don't understand that language because they're communicating through text and through emails. So the philosophy that I developed over the course of time is, I mean, if you break it down, this is just a computer. We have been gifted the most powerful computer known on this side of civilization. That computer is running this machine. And again, the most high tech machine known to mankind. The only problem with this society is that there was no manual given to us. And nobody seems to understand in terms of communication that the remote control for this computer is your mind or your thoughts, is your consciousness. And so that's what I teach in the basic program of the lost languages. How do you use your remote control, your mind, your thoughts, your consciousness, which is the only control we have, this real estate right here, to activate the computer, the CPU, to make the machine do, say, and react the way you want it to, so that you get a better reaction from people in your world.
So, look, as a young man, you went through hell,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure.
And you talked about um, developing presence in your nervous system. And we're living in a time where the very idea of manhood, masculinity, is being attacked by the left as somehow bad and wrong. They use this fucking nasty, evil phrase, which I don't tolerate in my presence, called toxic masculinity. There ain't nothing toxic about masculinity. Masculinity is
No.
awesome, just like femininity is awesome. And they each have their own uses. So, why do you believe that you being a young man going through all this hell, like what allowed you to go from having your nervous system being in fight or flight, or as you called it, hypervigilant, to being somebody who was able to take control of that and start helping other people do that?
That's a great question. This is decades in the making, decades of self work, decades of mindfulness, and decades of what I call, what I'll refer to, and I refer in my book to, the human epidemic, the cure for the human epidemic. The human epidemic, whether it's relating to masculinity, femininity, or just humanity in general.
Well, in this show, let's talk about masculinity and men, okay? Let's not go into the human thing because you can do that on other shows. But this is the
Absolutely.
show for men. So let's talk about men and what they're dealing with.
Perfect. So give me a second. Let me gather my thoughts here.
By all means.
You know, the human epidemic, whether it's relating to men, is lack of awareness, lack of self awareness, lack of awareness of our surroundings, lack of awareness of how you show up and how you're being responded to. So, how this worked for me was I just started to pay attention to what is the most important thing in terms of communicating with others. And it dawned on me that controlling my nervous system. You know, I think when you
Mm,
talk about men being attacked all the time and me being hypervigilant, there's a certain level of aggression that I
yeah,
think is associated with control
yeah,
and command.
that's
And
right.
over the course of time, over the course of decades, and this actually does apply specifically to the masculine presence,
Mm,
is understanding that you don't need aggression and command in order to be in control of your surroundings. You need command over your own nervous system. So,
mm,
in part two of my program, which is called Human Optimization Systems, I have my clients create a contract with themselves. And the
mm.
contract is maintain control over a calm nervous system at all costs.
Ooh,
Protect your nervous system. So literally, it doesn't matter what happens, whether it's something to do with your health, your finances, your relationships, your people at work, your people above you, your people below you. At all costs, the
mm,
contract is protect your nervous system. And that is what I lead with. And then obviously, there are all these peripheral techniques and tactics that I talk about in terms of how to actually control that nervous system reaction, but then how to deliver with that calm nervous system. Because the reality is, as I said, you do not need aggression and command to gain control over your atmosphere or over your surroundings. What you need to be is the calmest tuning fork in the room. That's the way the human nervous system works. We give off bioelectric and biomagnetic fields from our heart and our brain. And that gets picked up, received, and responded to by every other animal that we are around. So the misconception is if I come at you with a lot of energy and a lot of aggression and a lot of static, I'm going to push you into a controlled situation. It's the exact opposite. And why a lot of what I talk about goes against the grain of performing in that aspect and delivering with presence. Because performance, if you think about it, is I want to control the atmosphere. Look at me, look at me, look at me. That requires a lot of self-evaluation and a lot of stress. When I lead with presence, presence becomes magnetic. Presence is not look at me. Presence is look at you and look at me looking at you. And therefore, if we're referring back to masculinity, you can flip this entire script on feeling the need to respond in an aggressive way in any situation, to being attacked, to being judged, to being looked at with toxic masculinity, and flip that entire thing on its head and come at every situation with calm, magnetic presence.
Well, the concept of doing a contract with yourself is very powerful because um, fundamentally, men are lazy. If they could get away with sitting in bed, eating ice cream and bonbons and drinking beer and watching a good game, they'd do it. Uh, but the truth of the matter is, they weren't built to do that, right? And they feel their best when they're being challenged. As a man, I feel good when I'm being challenged. When I'm being challenged, I rise to the challenge, I press harder, and I feel fulfilled as a result of taking that challenge on, whether I'm successful in overcoming it or not. I mean, as I told you, I was watching Canada play Switzerland in the World Cup game before I came to do this interview with you, right? And I told you I wanted to change the time that we were going to do our recording so
Right.
I could catch the game.
Yeah.
Now, the Canadian team was losing 2-0. They brought on a substitute who scored a goal within a minute of coming on. So it was 2-1. And then all of a sudden there was a challenge to go get that second goal to tie the game. And the Canadian team just jolted into action. Their play was electric. They pushed really hard. But the Swiss team rose to the challenge of defending them, right? The Canadian team had the ball. They were taking shots on goal. They were bringing in the ball into the box so their players could get a chance to take a shot on goal. All of that was happening at a really, really frenetic pace
Yeah.
because they felt the challenge of tying the game in front of them. And it was beautiful to watch. But then the Swiss team rose to the challenge of stopping them, of defending them. And that was beautiful to watch too. Now I'm a Canadian. I wanted the Canadian team to score. I wanted us to tie the game. Heck, I would have liked it if we'd have won the game, and that didn't end up happening. But I was impressed and actually awed by how these men just stepped in, pushed hard, did everything they could to overcome the challenge before them. And the challenge before them was not whether we're going to win or lose or tie the game, but are we going to deliver everything we have to this cause? And at the moment, this cause is this soccer game. And to me, the essence of being a man is a few things. One of them is you got to keep your word. A man keeps his word. I mean, we've lost that in the last 50, 60 years, and it's part of my mission to help bring it back. Secondly, a man's loyal. A man is loyal to the people he loves and the people he cares about. That's part of what makes you a man. And thirdly, a man rises to a challenge and gives it his all. When he surrenders to a purpose, he gives his all in order to have that purpose come alive. That doesn't necessarily mean the purpose will be achieved, but at least it'll come alive. And as a man who works with men, who has a podcast for men, who runs a men's organization and runs a series of dinners for men who are business owners, that was beautiful to watch. It was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're talking a lot about the philosophies that I live by, which is stoicism. One of my favorite books is called The Daily Stoic, and it outlines these philosophies on a day-to-day
Yep.
basis. And you're talking about resilience and persistence and consistency. I have a quote that I love, which is persistence and consistency leads to accuracy and precision. And what you're talking about is these guys going beyond the concept of motivation into that level of inspiration. They were inspired to hit that mark, to block that defense. It wasn't just about in the moment, let's get excited and let's get hyped up. They went into flow state. That was a team that's obviously been working together for the longest time and connected in a way that went beyond. Like when I speak, oftentimes I go into the same philosophy of flow state. I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing at this point. I'm not thinking about the actual words. I'm thinking about the outcome. And I have an idea in my head that I want to explain. And it just starts to snap into flow state for me because I've been here 100 million times before. And that's what you're describing with these teams is they go into a level of inspired flow state. You know, I always say motivation will get you in the gym for a week. Inspiration will keep you there all year. And you're talking about a higher level of connection between those teammates and a conversation that they were having with themselves, especially even just playing at that level.
Mm. Yeah. So you speak about presence a lot in this conversation, and I want to understand what you mean by presence.
You know, presence, like I said, most people believe when they go into a boardroom, when they stand on a stage, when they get on a Zoom call to get a new date, that it's about a performance. I want to show you how good I am, how smart I am, how funny I am, how talented I am, how successful I am. I want to stand there and show you what I got so that you will like me, appreciate me, validate me, and make me feel good about myself. Performance is needy. Performance is self deprecating. You constantly are judging yourself when you're being performed because you're waiting for a response from an audience.
Mm.
Presence is different. Presence is let me just give of myself to you. And I have what I call a no fucks given attitude about this. Meaning, it's not that I don't give a fuck about people. It's not that I don't give a fuck about the world. I just have a very different relationship to the outcome. So
Mm.
in other words, and by the way, what I've done with my trauma and my hypervigilance is alchemize that into this weapon of presence and understanding how to deliver with magnetism and confidence and self-assuredness and never really look for applause. What I want to do is see, do you see me? And do you see me seeing you? And I find that instead of me waving my hands in the air for performance and asking people to come look at me and tell me how great I am, it's better for me to speak my truth, come off in a very genuine, authentic, confident, controlled way, and draw people to me.
Right, right. So we speak in the men's world of masculine presence. And, let me ask you, when I use that phrase with you, what does that say to you?
I mean, look, coming from a guy that did not grow up with a masculine figure in my life, I can tell you that masculine presence for me represents complete and utter self-confidence and autonomy, taking care of myself. You know, one of the things that I grew up with was a fear of failure, fear of homelessness, fear of not having that man or that uncle or that brother, that father to run to. And one of the quotes that really resonated with me when I would look in the mirror and think about this is, Newsflash, no one is coming to save you.
Yeah,
This
no
life
one
of
is
yours
coming to
is
save you.
100% your responsibility. And the truth is, that's the same for any human who even has parents to an extent, maybe not financially, but intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. You're on your own. You got to figure this out for yourself. So when it comes to masculine presence, I think it's absolute stoic confidence in your ability to take care of yourself and those around you.
Well, there's a writer, his name's David Data, and he's gone a little crazy lately, but in the 90s, he wrote a book called The Way of the Superior Man. Um, and he said the degree to which a man is a man, essentially, is the degree to which he um, can be comfortable in the face of other men's criticism. Um, and
Interesting.
first time I heard that, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about,
Right.
dude? Like, I'm not here looking for other men's fucking criticism. But then I read what he had to say about it a little more deeply than just a soundbite. And essentially, what he meant was that we as men are, to use that phrase from the Bible, um, iron sharpening iron. And iron sharpening iron causes sparks to fly. And that's what he means by other men's criticism. And a man is truly going to become a man when he's able to stand in front of other men and listen to their criticism without losing his shit. And taking from that criticism what is valid and what he can use to improve himself and discarding the rest, because sometimes a man's criticism is just his own bullshit, right? And he's bringing that to you not because he's really seeing anything that's going on in you, but because something got sparked in him and he wants validation, and that's fine. Sometimes men do that, but if you're truly a man, you can sit in front of that. You can sit in front of him criticizing you, knowing that he's full of shit, and still be all right. That's cool. Um, and that's a beautiful thing. I thought.
Yeah, I have a spin on that. It goes back to my whole concept of the human epidemic and lack of awareness. So, regardless of whatever somebody's critique is of me, whether I agree with it or not, what I do is I take accountability, because it's not, when you interact with other humans, it's not what you say or don't say, and it's not what you do or don't do. The ultimate result is, how did you leave them feeling? I always tell people that's your brand. Your brand is not what you said or when they applauded for you while you were saying it. It's what they say when you leave the room.
Mm,
So if someone's critiquing you or criticizing you, whether or not you agree with it is immaterial, because at the end of the day, it's how they feel. So if I'm taking accountability for my actions, and I always take accountability when I'm communicating with others, because my philosophy is, if I'm a lion, the name of my company is Persuasive Lion. If I'm a lion and you're a tiger, I'm not going to expect you to speak lion fluently. I'm going to be a lion that understands the language of the tiger. So if you're coming to me with criticism,
I love it,
okay,
man. That's
yeah,
all.
if you're coming to me with criticism, I'm going to take that with the proverbial grain of salt. I may not agree with you, but there's a reason that you feel that way. So if I'm taking accountability for my interactions and for the reactions that I get from others, then I can't help but take you seriously enough to say there's data involved here. Let me at least apply that to my operating system and use it to upgrade and optimize my behavior.
Yeah, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Um, the other thing that David Data says in his book, The Way of the Superior Man, is that in a relationship with a woman, a man, uh, a masculine man, is like a rock in the ocean. It's steady, it doesn't get perturbed or knocked off course. And a woman is like the waves of the fucking ocean. And she is constantly shifting and moving and changing, and she's crashing herself and exhausting herself against the rocks. And if the rock is steady, then there'll be a time when the waves will exhaust themselves. The woman will exhaust herself and she'll be calm, and her nervous system will be calm. But if the rock is not sitting on a solid foundation, then the rock will be moved by the waves of the ocean. And that's when the feminine essence, when a woman can't trust a man, is when he's easily knocked off course. Because women are constantly giving us shit tests in life.
It's funny that you mentioned that quote, because as I said, everything is top of mind for me about my book. And every one of my chapters has a quote from either Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus or one of the Stoics. And that is the head of one of my chapters that says, be the rock in the ocean that the waves crash upon, be the immovable object that everything else formulates itself around. And again, I think you're talking about the exact same philosophy that I preach. It's whether or not you want to be a masculine man in a boardroom or a masculine man as a father or a masculine man in a relationship with your woman, you still want to be not only that immovable object, but you still want to be the calmest tuning fork in the room. You want to be the lighthouse, not the foghorn. You want to be the thing that brings them light and brings them comfort and calm. And that's not just with your woman. That's with anyone in your universe. That's with your friends. That's with your family. That's with your business associates. And most importantly, guess what, bro? You want to be that solid rock and the calm tuning fork for the most important one, for yourself. There's masculine presence. Be calm and controlled and in good relationship with yourself. And then you can really communicate with others more effectively. I always say that. The conversation that you have with yourself as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, or as a manager, or as just a human on the planet, the most important conversations you're ever going to have are the ones that you have with yourself, and maintaining that stature, like you just said. Don't let the world shatter you. Every day there's going to be a reason for something to break you down. Every single day, every moment. Life is not about, the cliche, right? Life is 1%, 99% of how you think, 1% of what happens to you. I completely disagree. Life is 0% what happens to you and 100% how you react to it. We are in complete control of all of it, without a doubt. If I didn't look at it that way, my family situation would have crushed me. It was The way I turned out was 0% to do with that and 100% how I reacted to it.
Well, let me just ask you, did you end up starting up your own family as well?
I did not as of yet, but that is certainly not out of the question.
Okay.
But I've not gotten there yet.
Okay. Um, and for a man who's listening to this, what advice would you give him if he's feeling lost? He's feeling unsure about how to move forward in life and be the man that he's always wanted to be. What would you tell him he needs to focus on?
Look, man, I was that guy. I've hit the floor multiple times in my life, not just when I was 6, when my dad died, not just when I was 19, when my mom died, but when I was 22, when I was suicidal and drinking a bottle of vodka a day, when in 2022, when I hit my like worst time in my life right after COVID, all these times as I got older over the decades where I was lost, as you put it, and more lost than most because with no sounding board, no net, no one to go and say, hey, I'm lost. So number one, I would recommend looking in the mirror. That's the first thing. You're your best critic, you're your best support system, and you're the most honest one. If you can look in a clean mirror and be very honest, look, Nikki, everyone's where they are because of their behavior, because of their reactions to things. And yes, people get sick and things happen. But for the most part, if you look around at your circumstances, you look yourself cleanly in the mirror, you can blame yourself for pretty much your entire story. And the gift that I would give someone who's in that position is to literally wake up on any given day and realize it's never too late. It is never, ever, ever too late. I am 59 years old and my business is just now achieving a level of excellence and success and quality after I stumbled for many, many years. I succeeded and I failed. I tried and I failed. And so again, coming from a background where I did not have a silver spoon in my mouth, I did not get money from family. I did not get support from anybody. It's never too late. It's never too late to start over, look yourself in the mirror. Literally start with one push-up, one phone call, one email, one cold shower, one 10-minute session where you sit and breathe and get inside your head. One bike ride can change your whole philosophy on things. You just really have to look in the mirror and decide. This is not about getting lucky. This is not about anything other than coming to terms with the truth. One of my other favorite quotes is, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off.
True. So tell me about the book, The Lion's Code.
That is decades in the making. It's my whole journey of this communication process. Starts off in the preface with a very vulnerable, very honest backstory of my life, which I gave you a little bit about today. And then it basically is an operating manual to upgrade your human nervous operating system on all levels in terms of everything we talked about so far in the lost languages, which is the basics of eye contact, body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, melody. But then it talks about how do you walk into a room? How do you understand the nature of micro expressions in someone's face, watching their eyes, breath work? I go into supplements and nootropics and ice showers and heat shock therapy. It literally is an overview, complete manual for the human operating system.
Very good. And available Amazon.com and all the usual places.
On Amazon for 99 cents right now on sale on Kindle, and it's also available in paperback. Yeah.
Brett Lavender, it's been fun having this conversation with you, brother.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You bet. All right, man. God bless you, brother, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.